What's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys today, the results of the BigMan Weekend Pro Show that just wrapped up in Spain earlier today. So this was an interesting show. You had some pretty decent names in this lineup. I was kind of surprised by some of the results, to be completely honest. I was kind of expecting Catello to be a little bit more of a factor here, but he didn't even place top 5. So the winner of that show was Brett Wilkin, which means he qualifies for the 2023 Mr. Olympia. In second place, you had Andrea Presti. They were going back and forth between the two of them the most, it seemed. Theo Laguerrier, who is already qualified, I believe, for both the 2022 and 2023 Mr. Olympias. So he was third in here. Mo Shaban wound up in fourth, and Roman Fritz moved up to fifth place here. So overall, I thought it was a really good look for Brett. I thought it was a really good victory for him, and I think this is always really one of the smarter moves, is these guys that are able to qualify as early as they possibly can for the following year's Olympia. That way they can shut it down and not have to stress about trying to qualify or having to prep for another show, and they can focus specifically on the points of their physique that they feel they need to improve for the Olympia. And that whole year, kind of stress-free and with the ability to just focus on that one show, I think is really a massive advantage. I think that could be something that's big for Brett. So congratulations to Brett on the victory, and I'm looking forward to seeing him at the 2023 Mr. Olympia next year. Now, another guy that wants to qualify for that 2023 Mr. Olympia is GoodVito, Vitaly Ugonikov, who was the champion at this weekend's Amateur Muscle Contest Nationals in Brazil, which was a pro qualifier, and Vitaly won his class, which was the super heavyweight class, and he also won the overall to win the pro card. Now, Vitaly said in his latest Instagram post that his goal is to qualify for the 2023 Mr. Olympia. Now, if I'm translating this correctly, I believe he's saying he's going to qualify next year, so I don't think he's going to try to qualify by the end of the year, unless that translation is just a little rough. Maybe he wants to improve a little bit more before he does try to do a pro show and qualify. But I think it's going to be interesting because, honestly, I think he looked extremely impressive. I do think his conditioning could have been sharper, and I do think specifically at the finals of the show, his conditioning seemed to fade a little bit, especially compared to the guy they were comparing him to in that overall call-out from a different weight category. But I think GoodVito is a real deal. He's got some really strong points to his physique, crazy V-taper, crazy width, these wide flaring lats from the front, but really his legs seem to be the showstopper. The size and the separation seems to be something that is just really hard for people to beat and overcome. And I think that's going to translate pretty well to a pro stage, but I do feel like he does need to sharpen up that conditioning. But still, not to take away anything from the muscle contest victory, because he is still an amateur at this point. He is only in his mid-20s. 26 is very, very young for bodybuilding. Plus, I actually do think this was a very well-deserved pro card, because there's a lot of pro shows now where people feel like they hand out pro cards too easily, or pro qualifiers, I should say, where they hand out pro cards too easy. And there's also shows where, like, the top 2 in a class both get a pro card. That was not the case here. I think this was definitely a battle. This was definitely some really high caliber, really good bodybuilders in these lineups. And this was a really well-deserved, well-earned pro card for a guy that's still very young. So at 26, to win a pro card against guys that look this good, I think was very impressive. And GoodVito is definitely a guy that I'm excited to see how he does right out of the gate at his first pro show, if he's going to be able to do what Michael Krizo did and win his first pro show right out of the gate and get an Olympia qualification right out of the gate. That would be pretty impressive. And I would like to see him do what Brett does, or what Brett did, and try to qualify early so he does have time to improve and focus only on that Olympia prep. But I guess only time will tell. Now, next up in the news, another physique update from Chris Bumstead. So this was the #1 thing that I've gotten messages and comments about today. My Instagram feed was pretty inundated with tags on this post, because in this post, Chris Bumstead is flexing his bicep, and a big topic of conversation yesterday was he posted all these front double bicep physique updates where he's posing for Hani Rambod. And I think most people would agree it's kind of hard to argue that there is an imbalance in his biceps, whether it was the lighting or the angle that made the bicep look as small or as unpeaked as it did. Still, there was definitely an imbalance. One of his arms looked bigger. So the difference was, in this update, he's posing in a mirror. So it looks like he's flexing the same arm that we talked about yesterday. The arm that looked a little atrophied, maybe it's an injury that we don't know about. So a lot of the tags and comments that I was getting today was, this is Chris's response to your video and you were wrong, and clearly his bicep looks fine. But I guess because it was in the mirror, it was throwing people off, and it looked like that was the same arm. It wasn't the same arm, which makes me speculate even more that there might be an injury. The arm that we're talking about is the arm with the sleeve on his forearm. There's no tattoo on the arm that he's flexing in the mirror. The arm that looks like it could be injured and looks a little smaller than the other is the arm with the tattoo on it, and that is not the arm he's flexing in this video. And I do want to say here that obviously I'm a huge fan of Chris Bumstead, so I'm not trying to knock him or be negative. It seems like people took it like I was trying to, but I'm not. We're 3 weeks out from the Olympia when Chris posts an update with 3 front double bicep shots, 3 different pictures, 3 slightly different camera angles, and in every single shot, I mean, you can see a pretty clear imbalance in his biceps. You got to speculate or at least wonder what is causing that. Is it just the lighting? Is it just the angle? Or is something going on there? Could he possibly have been injured? Because that's the discussion. We're talking about whether or not Chris is going to win the Olympia this year. And if he was injured, that's a major factor in the potential outcome of the Classic Physique Olympia. So, of course, I don't want Chris to be injured. I don't want that to be the case. But I'm looking at that picture. I'm looking at all 3 of those front double biceps that he posted with Hani. And you can clearly see one bicep is more peaked, it's bigger, it's fuller, it's rounder than the other, regardless of the lighting or the angle. I think that's pretty clear and evident. Then you put it side by side with last year's Olympia update, or last year his bicep on stage at the Olympia compared to the physique update. You can clearly see there's a difference. And even though we're 3 weeks out and he's not completely in contest condition, I think you can still clearly see that something's going on. Now, the final story I wanted to talk about in this video today was the latest update from Samson Not. Now, I think Samson looks incredible, and obviously he's probably one of the best guys and biggest names that I didn't have in my top 10 predictions. So I want to talk about this update a little bit and why I don't have him in my top 10. I do think he could potentially crack the top 10, and if he's not in the top 10, he's probably going to be in the call-out that's like right on the edge of the top 10. But he could very well be in the top 10. Predictions are just that, predictions. They're not the actual results of the show. But the main reason why I don't have Samson in the top 10 is because we just haven't really seen Samson prove it yet on stage against the best guys. We saw him at the 2022 Arnold Classic where he finished 4th, which is a good placing at the Arnold Classic, but the Arnold's not the Olympia. And most of the guys that are in this Olympia lineup, aside from William Bonac and Brandon Curry, they weren't at the Arnold. So most of these top Olympians weren't even there. So he did well there, and he's won shows, but we just haven't seen him prove it against the top guys yet. And I think it is impressive that he weighed 330 plus pounds in the offseason, but we got to keep in mind, weight is just a number. And I do think he's got a very aesthetic physique. For a guy with the size that he carries, I think he keeps his waist incredibly small. And I am very impressed by him. He looks amazing in these updates. But he's one of those guys where I think it could go either way. And he hasn't really, like I said, we haven't really seen him prove it yet. So it's tough in a lineup like this where you've got 32 guys competing. And a lot of them are like A-list, top-tier, cream-of-the-crop bodybuilders. It's going to be really hard to crack the top 10. And even if he's not in the top 10, it's not an insult. I think he's still going to do well. And if he's not in the top 10, he's probably going to be 11th. And actually, one of the times that I told you guys I recorded my prediction video like 4 times. One of the times I had him in my top 10. But that's just kind of the reason for me. We haven't really seen him against the top guys, and the most competitive lineup that we saw him in was that 2022 Arnold Classic where he was 4th. And you got to keep in mind, Justin Rodriguez, who barely qualified for the Olympia on points, was beating Samson at prejudging. Now, Justin did wind up in 5th, and Samson wound up beating him at the finals, but he was ahead of Samson at prejudging, and he barely qualified for the Olympia. And then you've got, so Steve Kuklo was ahead of Samson in 3rd. And Steve also barely qualified for the Olympia. He was the last place in the point standings. And Steve's a great bodybuilder. But we're talking about guys that of these 36 qualified guys, the guys that were like right in the same realm as Samson at the Arnold are guys that are kind of towards the end of that list. And I've got to acknowledge as well, though, that Samson does look like he's improved tremendously since the Arnold Classic in terms of adding size. But just based on what we've seen from him so far, top 10 is it's a tough prediction to make. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Make sure you like the video and leave a thumbs up on it if you did enjoy it. And if you haven't watched a prediction video I posted last night yet, go back and watch that one. I think there's over 2,000 comments right now of everybody's Olympia predictions on that video. So if you haven't commented your predictions, go over there and comment your top 10 men's open Olympia predictions. And I'm probably going to do a classic physique one in the next couple of days. And as always, love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at NickStrengthPower. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.